This is yet another live event for a nice little Friday morning for some of you. If you're tuning in from different networks, hello, whichever time zone you're in. Today we have a really very different topic to the usual stuff that we do on Measurable Impact. We're all about tech B2B marketing. My name is Sandeep Joshi. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the managing director at Measurable Impact. We are a tech B2B marketing agency, and I have got Suror Sabedi from Talenteer today. Uh, I There are different ways I'm going to introduce him because he's one of those. He's a good friend, so I know I can give him a bit of a banter, but he's a disruptor. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's always doing things that make me, think, okay, I wouldn't have thought about it. So, Suror, good to have you on the show.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. There's everyone's basically got their own little corner, right? Yours is more towards marketing and strategies. I wouldn't trade you with any other market out there. So there you
Thank
go.
you.
And mine is more like, hey, how do I solve this problem? Because no one else is trying to do it, all right? So I got to solve problems. In a nutshell, kind of problem solver, but just a little bit maybe an introduction of myself. Founder and CEO of Talenteer, a global talent marketplace operating in three regional offices, serving 21 countries. Um, and love the tech, love talent, love marketing, love strategies, love getting people to think differently, right? To do something better. That's pretty much me.
And that's the show, but
There
so
you
basically the reason why you're on is because from a measurable impact standpoint, we have a very specific audience that we cater to, right? And it's all tech companies.
go.
There are tech partners, there are tech sort of MSPs to SIs to whoever you want to do, and then there are also those big tech vendors.
Yep.
And the reason why we are going to talk today about the huge gap between the tech talent pool in Australia, right? That's the topic that we're going to discuss this on. And how do we master it? How do we fix that gap? And what can we do? What are the strategic steps you can do to master that gap? So, Suror, as he spent a lot of time in this industry, especially in the tech talent recruitment space, I thought there could be no better match to come on the program and talk about it. And let's hit that head on, right? Let's get straight right into it. So one of the most important things, Suror, that keeps coming, and we obviously see a lot of reports coming through from every angle about the shortage, right? So we're talking about the shortage now. The very basic question is there really a shortage? Do we think there is a shortage of tech talent? I've got some stats here which I'll push to, but I first wanted to hear from you.
Um, yes and no, but more so yes, there is. It depends what because like when people think about the tech world, they just think of okay, developers, testers, the main technology like Microsoft, but the industry is so big and broad, multi-trillion-dollar industry. So yes, there is it at the different levels. You got to basically break it down to biteable sizes to understand. Okay, what do we need? And it depends also on geography. So in Australia, absolutely there is a tech talent shortage. Otherwise, these big companies wouldn't basically be going overseas to find the resources. But there's other factors that we'll discuss later on related to why the big players, even the smaller players, are going overseas to find the right talent for the right, let's call it the right tech talent.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's not just about hiring any tech talent, right? It's also about making sure you have the best of the picks when you
Yes.
have that pool that is coming in. So not only do you have to go out there to go and recruit the right people, but you also have to be that magnet that brings in the right people to apply for whatever you guys have the shortage for. So one of the key stats that we were looking at is like in like another 9 years, almost like 250,000 IT professionals are going to be required.
Yep.
Now, from what I remember, I think there's about 6 to 7 thousand professionals that keep on getting uh, sort of finishing their education into the IT sector in Australia, right?
Yes.
Now, if I do that math, that's 70,000, right? In the next 10 years. So you're still going to have like 150K to fill in, um, which obviously there's immigration and everything, but most of these people who are studying are also, there's that immigration policy, like the migration happens through that as well. So it's a significant portion.
It is, and that's a really good way to think about it, because it doesn't matter how much comes out of the universities or graduating programs and so on. So with the larger technology institutions, let's call it, the the problem is that the population in Australia is very small, right?
Mm, mm,
And then you've got other, let's call it legal slash migration policies and procedures in place that basically doesn't help with the, decreasing that volume of the demand. So it's basically demand versus supply, and it's to your point. If you want to be the best, you got to go get the best, right?
mm,
Best
mm,
talent.
mm,
Unless you have the best talent working for you, the likes of Google, you know how they say we get 900 people applying for the jobs.
mm, mm,
Yeah, 900 people apply for jobs, but how many of those are top quality talent? It's
mm,
a fraction of that, but that fraction for Google is huge, right? So
mm.
let's say even 10% of them are quality, that's 90 people, right? So absolutely agree with that. And we got to look differently. We got to look at how do we keep Australia going, moving forward, and the war for tech talent. How do we share those resources with each other, as opposed to cannibalize an industry like the larger players did in the past,
Mhm.
and then go from there. So to give you an idea, during COVID, there was a huge amount of hires that was made by big players.
Mm,
To name a few, that was Atlassian, that was AWS. These players basically offered um, ridiculous salaries that even made me think I should become a developer or something, right? And then that kind of hurt the industry a little bit as well, to be frank, right? And now the expectation of those candidates are inflated heavily. So the let's call it, the industry is becoming a bit more normalized. It's no longer just the candidates world, because they hired thousands of those people.
mhm.
And if they were hiring someone like 160,000, they were making hires of 500,000, 600,000 kind of salary packages. And I was just like, that's
That's crazy.
ridiculous,
That's
right?
crazy.
So that being said, it's like, okay, well, candidates need to have a bit more like a reality check in today's world. They're not doing those anymore, right? Netflix did that too, by the way. Netflix was paying certain developers $600,000 salary, right?
Unreal.
And I was like, I should
Unreal.
just
Unreal.
learn some coding, man, right? But putting all of that aside, there's a lot of challenges out there, right? And then some big players doesn't help the smaller players. The smaller players doesn't help the bigger players, and then um, it's basically becomes a nightmare for the TA leaders out there,
Mm.
and people like us as well.
So what you're saying is like, obviously there's a ridiculous amount of influx or investments happening in overseas countries
Yeah.
like, probably India and China or wherever it is. And the
Yes.
outsource happens in such a way that these guys are offered ridiculous salaries. I mean, they're good talents over there, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. But the problem is now the immigration from those countries, which you would happen to Australia, significantly reduces for
Yeah.
those particular, because they're getting paid
Yeah.
ridiculous amount. Like you wouldn't get paid that in Australia, and you're gonna get paid overseas for that. They're
Yeah.
happy with that. So that obviously makes this economy,
Yeah.
or in this country, there's that gap is obviously keep on widening, right?
Yeah.
Now, here is the thing. Even on our network, and those of who you are who are listening to us right now, like we know that we've got about 400 to 500 technology companies or tech companies who are obviously vendors, or partners, tech partners, or or MSPs or SIs, ISVs, whatever category you want to call them. Now, the big ones like the Googles of the world, easier problem for them to fix,
Yeah.
right? They've got the name behind them and they know what to do. Now, what happens to these smaller companies, right?
Yeah.
Who are a little bit lesser known and they want to go for the right talent. So let's go into the sort of the belly of this conversation. What
Yeah.
is it that these companies can do to help build or help the right or recruit the right talent rather?
Yeah, yeah, and that's a really good question. I would call it the billion-dollar question, not the million-dollar question, right? Because even the bigger players do have their challenges, right? So in the financial services space, there's the winners and there's the losers. So, for example, in Australia, Sydney and Melbourne have lost a lot of tech talents who are migrating because of cost of living and so on. So, up into Brisbane because cost of living and so on. So, is a lot better there and lifestyle improvement and X Y Z. But coming to the smaller players. And that's happening. Majority of those are happening because work from home, the larger banks and so on, so are offering that. Let's call it capability, all right? But the smaller players, what they need to do is they need to look at it slightly differently, right? You can't compete on salary. So what do you got to compete on? Work from home, flexibility, hiring people in different regions, hiring at scale, working with companies that can give you that scale and give you um, proper data to back up what their services offerings are. So there's a lot of recruitment agencies that basically, I call it body shopping, right? But then there are a lot of recruitment agencies. There's a lot of platforms, marketplaces that offers you a different perspective, and you can get the right talent to work for you, onshore, offshore, doesn't matter, right? And that gives you that scale, right? And that eliminates that issue of shortage of skill in Australia, right?
Mm, mm.
Everyone's talking about shortage of skill from, let's call it from the prime minister up all the way to small business owners like us, right? What is that shortage of skill? How do you? But no one's looking to fix that problem. There are a handful of companies doing it, predominantly in that marketplace environment, which is brilliant to see. And then the issue of getting talent from overseas is a major gap, right? The talent from overseas is no longer like, okay, India is a smaller economy, well, much larger economy, but salaries are a lot smaller compared to Australia, so I'm going to get them from there. But no, the European companies, say for example, the Google branch out of the US for is hiring talent from India. They're competing with the Google branch out of Australia for the same talent, right?
Crazy.
And the people, because of our currency exchange rates and so on, so they get that top talent, right? The US gets it. And when those people overseas gets those offers coming through to them, what is more attractive? $500,000 or $300,000. Oh, but Australia is a lot more safer. So it comes basically what you see, what you perceive as a good lifestyle. In my opinion, Australia is basically the land of opportunities as opposed to other countries.
Oh,
But
100%.
you know, it's a matter of how you perceive it. So the smaller players, if they look at employer branding, they need to look into that. There's no such thing as I'm too small to think about employer branding, right? There's literally 12 metrics: candidate demographic, candidate acceptance offer, Glassdoor, for example, interview experiences, um, people's reviews, people's capability. Don't take those through. Don't pretend that you're a massive organization. You have a 20 different stage interview. That's where they can win against the larger players because the larger people are not interested in doing 20 different interviews, right?
No,
Oh,
no.
well, 20 is a bit, too much, but let's say there are companies that are doing 10-stage interviews,
I
psychometric
know. And I
testing, technical testing, and this and that. So
correct.
the smaller players can win there.
So, like, I mean, as a marketplace, I mean, I know that Palantir is probably one of the biggest tech talent marketplaces when it comes to, this this entire ecosystem of not just um, employers who are looking for it, but also in terms of the recruiters that are in the back end who can supply. Um, do you actually perform that same due diligence when you are trying to, let's say you're working for a client and they are trying to look for that? what are, like, I took a few points saying, reducing the time frame of that recruitment process,
Yeah.
having more legit scans in terms of how do you prep the you know your talents, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you also need to make sure that these talents have been verified,
Yeah.
and before they even come to that phase. So what if we had to put absolute step by step information, because that's what people are here to listen, what are
Yeah.
the top five things that these guys can do in a particular order, right from the top, to get them ahead of the curve?
Um, there's so work with organization. Talent is one of those organizations that we do, and our clients loves us because of that reason. So there's four things that I would say you got to narrow it down to four things. If anyone's
All right.
sitting in as a hiring manager or a TA personnel there,
Mhm.
and those four things are number one, time to fill ratio, right? So speed kills. You got to be into the market. The minute you start engaging with the candidates, you got to move through the process really quickly. Don't delay it. Don't give them, and that if you delay it, it gives them bad experience. By the time you are ready to hire, they already have signed a contract with someone else, right? So time, you got to make sure your process, internal processes are up to the task to hire people really quickly. Then from now, I'm thinking from a business owner perspective, how do I basically get the best bang for my buck, right? Look at it differently. Look at the cost, so cost per hire, right? The cost per hire, you can get quality hires from recruitment agencies. You can get quality hires internally. But what if you had the scale that matches that cost per hire, right? So if you get scale and cost per hire, that box, put it into one box, right? Then you win. So as an example, I'll just talk about Talented, which I know the best. What we look at is, you know, how do we give our clients the maximum scale? So, for example, give them opportunity to work with recruiters, give them opportunity to work with our own database, which is one of the largest on the planet, if not the largest. Then you've got, managed service providers, system integrators, consultancy agencies, all you putting on their unutilized bench of staff, where our clients can have access to those guys through our MSA with them, right? So we eliminate the issue of procurement, right? So procurement has another issue. They have to go through so many different due diligence and so on. So with Talenty, if they go through it with us, then they don't have to worry about signing new vendors all the time, just because this individual has got that talent and this individual doesn't, or their own vendors might not. So bringing us as an alternative or a complementary solution to this. And then vetted, which is the most important thing in my opinion. If you want to bring the right talent, they have to be qualified, right? Qualified meaning a vetted talent. So looking at their qualifications, their certifications. When you look at a technical, for example, a mid-senior technical personnel, the amount of certifications that they can mention on their
Yeah.
resume is just
Yeah.
ridiculous, right? But are those qualified? Are those vetted, right? People, I will assure you, 95% of people that hire those people, they just basically say, okay, does this person know it? Yes, they do, but do they vet it against it? Yep. Do you have all of those certificates? No, you don't. Marketplaces such as Talenty looks at those things to make
But
sure
how do you guys do that? Sorry to interrupt there. Like, this is a big thing. Like, is
it
it
is.
mostly AI driven, or is it a bit of AI and human effort?
It's a bit of both. You have to do a bit of both because AI can't do everything. You have to connect to different databases. You have to have access. You have to have partnerships and alliances that companies can't go sit and build alliances with. Let's say 400 vendors, right? So marketplaces have or platforms have access to those vendors and qualifying candidates. For example, is this person's Salesforce Marketing Cloud certificate verified against what's come out of that company as a certificate, right? Yes, it is. Or has it been, for example, photoshopped, right? With the same reference number. Do you check
Jeez,
the
that's gonna
reference
be
number?
tough.
It is. It's extremely tough for organizations to do. But if AI can do that for you, right? and
mm,
cross-examines it to the best of its ability. It's not going to be 100% accurate every single time, but it's going to give you 90 plus accuracy, right? That 90 plus, you rather have that than a human eye who just looks at it. Okay, I'm going to test this individual. Can he do the job? Yes, he can. But then they forget the legal implication. If
mm.
something goes wrong, if that person's going implementing a project for a client, right? If they're working for an MSP, something goes wrong and this person didn't have it, and then the let's call it the rigmarole starts to happen. They find out that this person wasn't even qualified. Legal implication for that organization, be it big or be it small, is massive, right?
Yeah, but like when clients are dealing with, I know clients who are working with 10, 15 recruiters at the same time. I don't know how many, what's the big number, but there
Yeah,
are so many recruiters that they're working with at the one particular time. And the job of a hiring manager, whether it's hiring manager or the kind of roles that we talk about, um, talent acquisition, right?
yeah,
TNA. So talent acquisition managers, they do not have the bandwidth to go and do that.
no,
Like it has to be the responsibility of the marketplace that they're going to look for.
yeah,
Most of the times they are going with the trust until they do their 10th
mhm,
interview. Maybe that's why they're really increasing the list of their interviews is up to 10.
yeah.
So it's like a chicken and an egg, right?
So, and that's another great point that you raised. So, HR managers, not HR managers, sorry, hiring managers, and TA don't have the time and luxury to agree with every recruiter approaching them, say, "Hey, look at my candidate," because the candidate pool is the same. The candidate pool is not bigger, right?
Mm,
But what you want to do is you want to engage with those recruiters that are the most active in the market, that has the most conversations. They are the most aware of what's happening in the market, what's happening in the, let's call it boots on the ground, right? So you could go in panel 50 different recruitment agencies, but it doesn't mean anything, right? In the long term, and hiring managers don't have they're so busy in the day to day, like work lifestyle, let's call it, that they can't think about, okay, I need to engage this recruiter or I need to engage that recruiter. They can't recall names. And recruiters are super busy themselves, so they can't pick up the phone and contact those individuals. What technology has enabled organizations to do now is basically narrow down. So if you want to look for a recruiter who's the best in Sydney for in development roles, right, or testing roles, or let's call it Salesforce or AWS, right? Technology can pinpoint those recruiters and say, "Hey, engage this individual," and engaging those individuals. And then if you're working through marketplaces, your MSA and everything like that is signed, it just speed kills, right? Again, it goes to the speed, quality, and then scale instantly, right? So, one hiring manager in the infrastructure side of things could be looking for a VMware, Dell EMC recruiter. How could you do that? Like, you don't know which recruiter could do that kind of role. Technology basically bridges that gap for you.
mm, mm. And look, and more and more how obviously I, I don't remember the amount of times I would have used the word AI in my day-to-day business, but in the last year and a half, 2 years, since obviously the GPTs of the world have started to inundate the entire marketplace or the ecosystem, we know that it's just gonna be playing a huge role in, like, either you adapt or lose, I
Yeah.
guess. Like, you need to be able to, there's no way we're going to fight it. We just want to be able to create it in such a way that that workflow is going to help us reduce that, like you mentioned, time to fill ratio, right? It
Yeah.
needs to be able to, like, there might be certain ad hoc instances when your time to fill ratio is ridiculous, but if the processes have been designed that are short, sweet, fully vetted, for them to be that, you need to have fully vetted candidates at a timely fashion that
Yeah.
you're able to interview and reduce that time frame. I guess that's
Absolutely.
that's probably one of the main ones. Now, that's great. That's what a recruitment or a recruiter rather can do.
Yeah.
um, but a lot of times it's also about employer branding, isn't it? Like, how do they
Absolutely.
create that branding that in fact does give an opportunity for different candidates to apply for it? Like, they're looking, the first thing they're going to look at the top 5, 6 big companies, what are they asking for?
Yeah.
The Googles of the world, and they're going to start filling those roles. That's why they've got 900 candidates for each role that they put out. Imagine their talent acquisition teams. I don't know how
Yeah.
they're going to do it.
Well, it becomes about data crunching, right, for them, right, and then sifting the right people and so on. So, but employer branding is, in my opinion, is one of the most crucial assets. If an organization has a really good employer branding strategy in place, that's one of the best assets they could have. The best commodity, in my personal opinion, as a business owner, is your talent. Who you got in your organization, right? What talent you have, how much effort they put in, and so on. So employer branding, I will literally look at employer branding with 12 different metrics, 12 of them, right? Be it small, be
Wow.
it big,
Right.
right?
We need to create an
Um,
ebook around it.
yeah, and there's no shortcuts around it, right? So it builds up over a period of time, but the smaller players can start competing, right? It just takes a little bit more time from the founders and the directors of the company. So looking at candidate engagement, I'm not talking about the candidates that apply for a job with you. I'm talking about your future candidates. What do you market yourself as in social media? How do you basically, what kind of analytics are you going to provide on your career pages? Open application expression of interest, for example. What's the expression of interest look like for your organization? Putting those employee brand indexes and so on. So there's so many different things there that you can measure. We can talk to anyone interested in actually send them some
I'm
information
pretty
on
sure
it.
most of the audience would be, because I guess that's where probably one of the biggest struggles is to stand out as an employer to
Yeah,
get the volume of candidates applying for their roles.
exactly, and you got to be engaged with these people. When you're a smaller player, you don't have time to be engaged with all these people. Just basically occasionally here and there, you post something that it's so great to have, so on. So I've joined this company. Here's my coffee mug. Here's my branded booklet, and so on. So that's all great, and then it just stops at that. What
Mm.
do you do after that? From a marketing standpoint, there's so much more that you could do. Like you got to look at your referral rates, right? I've got a referral program. Okay, what's your referral rate? It's 5
Mm.
a year, and I am a 1,000 employee organization. So you're
Yeah.
saying 1,000 people only brought you 5 people from their network within the organization.
All right.
Is that what you're telling me? How much is that? How much do you think that's costing the business? So we actually built a really comprehensive calculator that will help with that. So
That's a
um,
good point you made. I'm sorry to interrupt there. I'm gonna get ask one of my team members, if they're listening right now, to put the link to the calculator in our LinkedIn live chat. If you guys are listening to this, can we just do that right now? Because I really found that calculator incredible, because it just helps you figure out what is the cost of acquisition for you to do that, but at the same time you can also compare as to what you guys. So that's pretty. Sorry, if you don't mind
well,
explaining a little bit more.
and it's about doing those little things. So working with organizations, like in this case, like you mentioned, the calculator. So we give that access to anyone for free, right? And there's no reason why people shouldn't use that more and more every single day. Um, it all comes down to the kind of demographic factors that you're looking at, ROI on employer branding, and so on. So if you want to be in it, you got to be in it 100%. You can't just be half, one step in, one step out, in my opinion. So we can help organization. Anyone interested, like I said, feel free to reach out to myself or Sandeep. Talk about these 12 points, and we can have a deep
Deep dive discussion.
deep dive discussion about this. Yeah, that's thank you. Thanks for that. Deep dive discussion about this in detail, and then go from there. And no obligations, no cost. I will be happy to. I will actually. You'll say I'll give you 10 Sunday. 10 people from this call, we will offer it for free. I'll personally get involved in that.
Okay. All right.
Only
Well,
10, right? So if you're if you're
I'll
interested, get in quicker. The first in, first out.
I don't mind people making promises on my live stream. So if you did that, then I'll make sure I'll just create that clip and push it out later on. So it's all it's all in it's all on video. It's all on
Yeah,
records. So no, 100%. If you want to give a little bit more context, I'll put that out as a post later on.
yeah,
But coming back to the topic, like one of the three things that I've got out from this so far
yeah.
is a reducing your time to fill ratio, right?
Absolutely.
Second, we talked about how do we create that scale for your employees who are
Yep.
going to be recruited. Third, how do we have that employee branding? And look, when it comes to employer branding, it's also important, similar to things I always keep saying to my clients, like bring your people out into the open, let them know who are the people behind the scenes of the company, right?
Exactly.
How do
Yep.
we get, like, one of the things that we do a lot of physical events, live events, speaking opportunities. You're trying to give them an opportunity to have an opinion piece into the marketplace, right?
Yep.
You don't have to put a big camera in front of them to go and do massive video logs, but there's definitely a lot of things that they are seeing at a grassroots level with their clients. I'm pretty sure they can start coming up with a really strong storytelling, I guess, that
Yes.
could be
Yep.
pushed out and it explains. So these are the things that are definitely easier said than done. But if you have a plan, or if you have a method to madness with some of the things that we work with our clients. So if you guys want to know a little bit more about that, I'm more than happy to speak to you as well. But yeah, definitely. Is there anything else that we're missing other than these 3 points?
I would say two more points. One is cost. How do you reduce your cost per hire, right? Cost per hire is the most important thing, in my opinion, be it big organization or small organization, right? So, cost per hire delays, which feeds into time to fill ratio, which feeds into quality of talent. One wrong hire could cost a company $20,000 plus in Australia. That's what the bigger consulting company says. And then the cost of acquisition, whether you're going internal through internal channels or going through external channels, look at, I would say, look at ways that you can get scale, right? But quality scale, not just like scale for the name of the sake of
Yeah.
scale, right? So, um, us as an example, we have a flat fee, right? We give the recruitment service of headhunters at the cost of a RPO recruiter. How do you compete with that, right? Um, and in terms of the cost per hire, the other issue is that if you go out and post something and then you hire someone and then you're paying retainer fees, and if you're working with recruitment agencies you're paying their full recruitment fees and so on, so it becomes okay, well, what else do I get out of this recruitment agency, right? What other benefits do I get? Is it just basically placement, or is it basically, do I get some reports, do I get some data, do I get some consulting work around what's happening in the markets? Because a lot of the times organizations treats recruiters, sorry, treats those recruiters like, okay, they're just going to give me this job, this candidate, and then I'll see you later, goodbye, right? I feel bad for the recruiters because they got a wealth of knowledge
There's a
about
lot of
everything,
effort as well into that.
right?
Yeah.
So extract that for your next hire. Yeah, use it and utilize it. And then if you don't go directly with that individual, which you most likely will, I recommend it because they performed for you in the first place. So you should go back to them. But if you don't, you got some data to do it yourself,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And then it's not always about going to recruiters. It's not always about going to the marketplaces or um, a lot of hiring managers actually post the jobs nowadays themselves, right? But you have to have your TA involved in that process. Don't get rid of the TA. TA, in my opinion, is very, very important in the grand scheme of things, right? With their oversight, you'll make a better decision than just making
mm,
it by yourself as well.
mm,
And
mm.
then TA shouldn't push the hiring. Sometimes TA pushes the hiring managers out of the way when they're doing their job as well. So the TA become a little bit of a gatekeeper. That's not good as well, right? And the larger or mid-sized organizations allow that to happen, and you can see it. So then recruiters, when the hiring managers are not getting too many calls, say, hey, I would like to recruit for you, that because the TA has done something, in my opinion, which
Mm.
is not so great for recruiters. And that also leads to employer branding and negative image in the market, because these TA people, these recruiters talk to so many people on
Yeah.
day-to-day basis, right? And they try to make some dough, they make a living, so they need to be able to say, okay, I'd rather put you in this organization than that organization.
But then, in terms from a Talenteer perspective, right? How do you guys? Is there a way that you guys could actually reduce the cost for your, potential employer?
Absolutely. So we do through 5 or 6 different, let's call it channels, strategies, mediums, whatever you want to call it, right? So we give them scale. Like if you want to go onshore, you got onshore. If you got to go offshore, you got offshore capability, right? So cost savings is there straight away. You don't have to, if you're a small business, you don't have to start an operation overseas. We've got access to um, being able to do it in 152 countries, right? So we can put people on the bench as long as you can offer them their salary. We can give them a laptop and workstation and so on, so to operate from anywhere, right? That's one. If there is a major project that's being deployed to the contractors, we've got tier one, tier two partners overseas that we can basically tap into their market, into their talent.
Mm. Mm.
And if you want to reduce cost, where you got a large project, you want your project directors to come from tier one, your middle manager to come from tier two, and then offshore would be a team that you come from a tier three consultancy company.
Mm.
They can do that. They can do all of that through Talenty Marketplace, and that reduces for the whole project, CIO level. That
Mm.
reduces the cost by millions. Depends on the
Mm.
size of the project,
Mm.
obviously, right? So there's so many different avenues with Talenty, and it is. I've seen it with other platforms and marketplaces as well
Mm. Mm.
that they will have access to. So just think about it. Thinking about it, what's the modern age of hiring strategies look like? It's no longer seek.com, linkedin.com. I've got a LinkedIn license. I'm going to do this. Okay, good luck. Just continue doing that. That's just old process in my
Mm.
opinion.
Mm. That's crazy. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And you mentioned there were one more point that you wanted to make. So there's a
The,
cost
the,
implications.
the last point leads to yours. Basically, please, guys, put some videos, a day in the life of my admin. Don't put in the day in the life of my CEO, right?
You
A
already know
day,
about that.
yeah, exactly. So, but it's having your like the people on the ground who is basically a day in the life of my account manager and so on. So put that there. Write the story. Storytelling is the best thing in employer branding. Show others what is it like for your let's call it employees to work for you, right?
Mm. Mm.
There's so many great cultures and organizations. I'm still learning. I'll be very honest. I'm taking some of the best things out of these organizations, and I'm applying it into our organization, right?
Mm.
And I want to create a happy, healthy work-life balance within Talented itself, which
Mm.
is growing
Mm.
rapidly. But and, it's there's obviously time for us to become a behemoth ourselves. But who knows when that's going
Agreed.
to happen.
Agreed. Well, this is awesome. I mean, I know we have gone a little bit over time, but um, once again, I'd like to recap this a little bit.
Yep.
So, if I look at how tech companies can be ahead of the curve in solving this gap, is in five folds, right? In
Yep.
five key areas. The first one that we talked about is reducing the time to ratio, like time to hire ratio.
Yep.
Second, we talked about how do we help candidates scale. Is that the right way to explain?
How do we give organizations to scale at hire at scale? So
Hire
giving
and
them
scale.
more access to different mediums of hires.
Hire and
Hire
scale.
scale, yeah.
That is definitely one of the key things. The third point that you made was really focusing on employer branding, and of course, there are a lot of subcategories, I guess, or subsections to that.
Yep.
But really working hard on your employer branding, right?
Yep.
The fourth thing is reducing the cost of hire, right?
Yep.
The cost of hire again becomes you're talking to hundreds of recruitment companies and all of them are different, and they don't end up thinking about the time cost that it takes
Yeah.
for amount of people that gets added for every candidate, right? So ultimately, whatever percentage that you end up paying for your recruiters, that's one thing, but then the time it took to do that is
Yeah.
just ridiculous, right? You got
Yeah.
hundreds of people working on it. Imagine the cost of hire for that particular candidate. So that's definitely number four. And the fifth one is, then I would say, outreach. Create programs to get your employees or
Yeah.
people who are not just at the C level, but everyone within the circle, to go out, talk about their roles.
Yeah.
Day in a life, right? Maybe we
Yeah.
should have a day in a life campaign for all your clients to say,
Yes.
we're going to come in and help build videos or try to get their storytelling out in some way, shape, or form. So
Yeah.
these are probably one of the five key elements. If I had to summarize, would
Yeah.
that be a fair statement?
Yeah. Yeah. I
I know
would.
there's hundreds others, but
There's it's so complex, but to start with that five, and then if you guys, like I said, you guys need help, we're happy to help as well. Um, it literally is about starting somewhere. You got to start somewhere. Don't do the same thing over and over again, expect a different result. In other words, try new strategies, new methods that has worked for others,
mm,
and then see how that could work for you, and then add to that. Put your own organization's DNA to that.
brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, Soror. Let me see if there is any chats or any questions on the chat that I can bring up.
Sure.
I haven't seen any come through. Let me just quickly check on LinkedIn. If anyone in the audience has any questions that they would like to ask, um, or I'll just open it up to the audience. If there is anyone who would like to um, have any of their questions answered, yeah, just a couple of comments so far. No questions. Okay, great. Well, so, Roar, thank you so much again. I know this was a little bit of a rush sort of an event, but has been one of the key topics that's been spoken about in a lot of meetings that I've been to with most of the tech partners that I work with, small, medium, large, in all capacities. So I'm really glad that I was able to bring this topic on one of my live streams. And for all of you out there, if you have any questions, we're going to drop the link to the calculator in there, and we'll also drop in details from Suror if you want to reach out and assess whatever you guys want to, how you are trying to take your strategy to market. More than happy to speak to Suror and his team to take it further. But in the meantime, happy marketing.
Happy recruitment, happy employer branding, man.
Happy recruitment and employer branding, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'll close the session now. If there is anything else that anyone needs, just don't forget to send me a quick ping on LinkedIn or email me or call me. Thank you.